Hey, welcome to Ed Talks.
There's our friend. Thank you guys so much. As you see, we're in our house.
Yes, we're in our
It's
house.
not our beautiful center. It's not our lounge area in the center. We've been traveling a lot lately, and we hadn't been feeling very well. We were kind of run down. So in this new world that we live in, we're in the midst of waiting for our COVID results, and just to be safe, because we didn't want to be around our friends after we traveled. So we wanted to welcome you to the third, is it our third or our fourth? Our fourth Ed Talk. And this particular session is really dear to our hearts. Matt and I are the parents of 6 kids. Everyone jokingly calls us the Brady Bunch of autism. And we have 3 autistic sons that we're very proud of, that were our inspirations and our personal passions for creating the center. So tonight is our parent panel, and I'm very excited about it.
So it kind of fits with the more intimate look, right?
Yes,
So,
definitely.
But I want to take a minute because I want to thank people. I want to thank everyone. This has been a very difficult time for our family, and I want to thank everyone who's sent good wishes and who thought good thoughts and who basically just were there. And there were so many. And like I said, it was a very difficult time, and your good thoughts have meant the world to us. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. So the Asners say thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it really makes us even more driven, to continue honoring Ed.
Yeah.
We named the center after Ed because we were so proud of all the work he had done for the special needs community in the past. He has an autistic son himself. And now even more so, the naming of the center means so much more to us.
And we are going to honor his legacy. We'll continue to honor his legacy. So you'll see great things in the future. So, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is a parents panel. So what we're going to do is for the next hour, we're going to discuss special needs, being a special needs parent with 3, actually, including us, 5.
3.
5.
It
Incredible.
took us a minute.
5 people who actually have been through this and who go through this and who are going through this. So the one thing I want to say is you're not alone. And that's the first message we want to send you. But they're from varying backgrounds and varying parental backgrounds. So we're going to actually introduce them one by one. We're actually Matt and Nava Asner.
You forgot to introduce us.
And Nava kind of gave you a little background on who we are. But let's bring in our first guest. And our first guest is Mike Federico. And Mike, do you want to, how are you?
Hi, guys.
Do you want to give a little background on yourself? And
I'm Mike Federico. I'm the father of Cameo Federico. Cameo is 22 years old and has Down syndrome. I am the president of Down Syndrome Association of Los Angeles. And I do want to say DSALA misses Ed as well. We appreciate all the support he gave our organization and his support to the Down syndrome community. So everything that you folks did at the Asner Center and Ed, we miss him with you. So
thank you.
I wanted to say that.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Carrying on for Ed, it's like, got to do it. But I've been proud to be our president of Down Syndrome Association the last couple of years. It's a great organization, lots of community support, and we love working with you folks over at the Asner Center.
And you're a dad.
Yeah. So being Cameo's dad's been an awesome journey for 22 years, and I look forward to talking more about the experience of our experiences of raising our kids with special needs.
All right. Next up, we have Shannon Penrod.
Hi.
Shannon.
I'm such a Luddite. I'm trying to share as fast as I can. But I'm so thrilled to be here, you guys. Like everybody else, I just want you to know how much we love you. Everybody loved Ed, and we love you, and we're so proud to be up with you here today, and making sure that I hope your dad's up in heaven and having a lovely drink and looking down and going, look at my legacy and how beautiful it is.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. And Shannon is a parent as well.
Yes.
Of a young man of an autistic young man who actually works for us.
Yes, he's been a proud counselor at Camp Ed now for he missed a summer because of COVID, but so technically he's been there 2 summers, but over 3 years. Loves it, lives for it. Just it's his favorite place to be, and he's just recently turned 18. He was diagnosed with autism at 2.5, was considered moderate to severe. He's 18 now, just started college, is also working full-time while camp isn't in session with a really fun, crazy job, and is the light of my life. So I'm so thrilled to be here representing as his parent.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon. All right.
Okay. And next up,
Elena.
Yes, I have the worst eyesight from here.
It's
Elena
okay.
Polanski.
Yes, it's Elena Polanski. It's such
Elena.
a hard name. Such a hard name.
No, you have a name like mine. It's just like everyone's gonna Elena Polanski.
So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, it's a huge honor. I have 3 children. I was a teacher for a few years, and I was working with children with autism for many years in Chicago. But then when I gave birth to my daughter and she had lost oxygen at birth, we were sort of thrown into the world of cerebral palsy, which was such a big, not only shock, but confusion. Mm-hmm. And all this information came at me all at once. So in the last 22 years, I've learned so much about myself and what a joy she is, and how lucky I am to have 2 others with her. And we've sort of made it a goal to have inclusion as part of our life, because I've always wanted them to be together and grow together. So we came to California from Chicago for a school that was fully inclusive so they could do that. And then since then, I've sort of been pushing for her to be included in the community as much as possible. As she's gotten older, I've sort of realized the importance of her being around other people who also have special needs, and what a feeling of a team she feels, and she doesn't feel alone, because even though inclusion was huge for her, she felt like it was almost ignoring the fact that she does have special needs, and she has many needs. She's spastic quadriplegic. She uses a wheelchair. She is a bright and happy girl, and has taught me a lot in this journey. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for having me. And she also wants a job at the Ed Asner.
Awesome.
Graduating high school.
I have pictures of the kids come up.
I know, we should.
Because I don't know if I should say their names out on screen, but she has the most beautiful smile I've ever seen, and it's like every time I see her smile, it's wonderful.
So we have a bunch of questions that we're just gonna kind of round table them, and I think the first thing I want to say is, before we start the questions, I just want to say there are no wrong or right answers here. I mean, they're just, these are answers. These are answers that are that we as parents are giving through our own experiences, and our opinions might differ. But we're all respectful adults, and that's that is we all respect each other. So with that said, I'm gonna throw out the first question to Nava.
All right. Okay. First question of the night is: do you have advice for new parents that are dealing with the realization that their child has special needs? And should we throw that to Elena?
Let's go to Elena first.
Did I pronounce it right?
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you. Great question, because this was my biggest challenge. I think the best advice that I could give would probably be to not believe everything you hear and read. Take some deep breaths and have faith in the human that you're trying to grow and raise, and sort of stay positive. I was sitting in front of a tub of ice cream Googling what cerebral palsy was when she was like 2 months old. And the things that I read were shocking to me.
Yeah.
She's going to die by the age of 1, and she's going to this and that. So it's really important to stay positive and not listen to all of the information. Just absorb it slowly and enjoy the moments that you could be missing as a parent.
Try not to Google so much.
Exactly.
Shannon?
I just loved what Elena just said, and I just want to double down on it. I think when all is said and done, it's important to get as much help and support as you can get. But I think the cornerstone of everything is that you got to remember this is still your child. It doesn't matter what label anybody slaps on anybody, it's still your child. And job number 1 is loving them. Loving them exactly the way they are. But like everyone in life, everyone can learn. We're all going to learn at different rates, and we're going to learn different ways and be stimulated by different things. You can never give up on your child. So you're going to find ways for them to learn, ways that make sense for them to grow. They're going to grow. You're going to grow. And if you remember job 1 is to love them, then I think it takes some of the pressure off of everybody.
Mike?
Yeah, I guess there's 2 parts to that. One, they're your kid first. Your kid first. You're gonna love your kid. You're gonna raise your kid. You're gonna let them be a kid as much as you possibly can. The other part of that question is, as a new parent, it was said, there's a lot of information out there. Don't Google so much. There's a lot of information. Like on any topic, there's a lot of information out there, but look for the right information. So find the resources that are community-based. When I say community-based, I mean either something set up by the parents, such as the Asner Center or Down Syndrome Association of LA, or one that's out there just to help you better the life, especially early on, whether it's Easter seals or a regional center, something that's there specifically for your child's population, and that will put you in touch with all these other resources. And that's a good thing. The communities talk. And so when you get in touch with stuff that are family-based or families are using, and you communicate, that's the information you need to look at, not so much what's on.
I agree, 100%.
And I think that it's interesting because Elena, you mentioned when you Googled, you saw the mortality rate and the average age, this kind of stuff. Certainly when Will was diagnosed, I was told what he couldn't do by his doctor, and his doctor just gave me a list of things that he would never be able to do, most of which he's already done, by the way, and I'm sure Shannon can back that up as well, and you too, Nava. So I think that you're going to hear a lot of negative things after diagnosis or birth or whatever. When you realize there's special needs involved, there are hurdles put up in front of your kid that you can't deny. There are hurdles. What you do with those hurdles, I think, is what's at stake here. And I think that having a positive attitude, embracing hope, and doing everything you can for your child is certainly what everyone needs to do.
I think I just would add one last thing is the feeling of being alone and being in your bubble right after the diagnosis. I think in advice you gave me many years ago is to find some like-minded parents, because I know all of us together, when we are with a group of special needs parents, moms or dads or caretakers, we really feel like these people are our family. Even if you've met people, I know Elena and I would say the same thing. Some of these parents that we meet, we've only known them for a short amount of time, but we feel so connected to them because they get it in a way that nobody else does. Even, childhood friends. So my advice would be to find a group of parents who can really understand what you're going through and be there for you.
And they're
in a
going
way.
through the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
and
pretty much what I said.
Yeah, because you feel very alone when it happens.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
100%.
that's very important. So the next question,
You want to take that one?
I sure will.
Okay. You go.
How do you handle it when other kids are mean or make it clear they don't want to play with your child? That's a
hard
tough
one.
question.
That's very hard.
And I'm gonna, in no particular order, I'm just gonna shout someone's name. I'm gonna go with Mike first. Mike, what do you have to say about that?
So it's funny, Cam is 22 now. So we've had these talks a lot, especially like in high school. You have the openness talk, and you have the lack of understanding, lack of tolerance talk about other people and that the struggles they're going through. There's a variety of good visual tools out there, whether it's a program-based video or a good after school special program or something that talks about anything from bullying or just the other child who may not want to participate with your child out of their own fear or just lack of understanding. And sometimes you use those visual tools to understand. But what she does also see out of it, like now that she's older, she loves to give that talk to younger kids with special needs. But she made a lot of friends socially at school. And I would love when I would be on campus, especially I was really involved in PTA in elementary school. I'd watch the interactions of the other kids, and you see those kids on campus that are very protective and defend their friends with special needs. And it's really awesome to see. And that really gets you as a parent. I look at them, I'm like, oh, those are your future police officers right there. I was watching them get very defensive and very protective of Cameo, very protective of her other friends with special needs in her classes at lunchtime and stuff when they try to do a full inclusion on campus. And then you watch the helpers amongst there that are very secure as themselves as kids and are very protective of their friends with special needs. So we do a lot of that.
Anyone else want to jump in with something?
I can tell you what not to do.
Sure. I'm sure Nava could answer that.
I have one of those too.
Well,
don't go after the bullies like the other kids are doing. I know that one. I've had to put my hands in my pockets.
I mean, I definitely, when Sophia's 22 also, and because she's in a wheelchair and she's nonverbal and sort of non-threatening, let's say, she's been very lucky, and people come to her because of the big, beautiful smile that you mentioned, Nava. Yeah. But then when the first time it did happen, I believe it was 6th or 7th grade, when I found out this boy was making fun of her in art class, I was almost in shock at my reaction, because I think, the other thing as a parent, you have to go through all the phases of loss. It's just sort of like a death in the family, and go through all those stages. But I don't think the anger phase was done yet.
That's just you being a mama bear.
Yeah. And I remember I had all 3 kids in the car in the handicapped spot, and I saw the boy walking right by, and I got out of the van and I had to point my finger in his face and tell him never to do it again. And he was 2 feet taller than me. And I got a call from his mom. She was very upset, understandably. No one should be yelling at anyone's kid. But it did open up some doors in terms of communication with the family, with the boy, and why he was doing these things and why he was acting out. So I think number one is communication, understanding, compassion, and it almost can turn, in these situations, you can almost dig deeper into the connection of humanity and understand each other better as people. Even at a young age, these kids understand so much about each other. So I think these are important situations that happen. I am embarrassed at the way that I reacted. It never happened again, but I was yelling at the kid and that doesn't go anywhere. So,
it's
I would have done the same thing.
I've had to talk Nava down a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I mean, it's one of these things that you can't handle hearing stuff like
Yeah.
that, and
Right.
and you react.
Yeah.
It's a reaction.
It is.
And
It's like you couldn't not react.
yeah,
I know.
I mean, especially when you hear somebody be really cruel. I heard a group of really mean girls when Eddie had first started in a typical class. And one of the little girls he had the biggest crush on too, and he would talk about her all the time. And she was just horrific. I mean, she was like Miss Perfect to all the parents and teachers and everything. And she was the main ringleader, telling the girls, "Oh, don't play with Eddie. He's weird." And I didn't make her cry, but she was kind of crying just because, I said to her, what if everyone said that about you? How would you feel? And it was like, I was shaking and crying and I'm like, I'm going to be arrested. I didn't touch her or anything. I just, I said, let's just pretend that was you. I heard her saying it. That was the horrible thing. And the look on Eddie's face, to me, I'll never forget, because he really liked this little girl, and
he had a crush on her.
Yeah, he had a crush on her, and he was, his little face was devastated. So it's horrible. And the answer is, try not to get arrested, parents.
Yeah.
Well,
There's my advice.
That's good.
and I'll just say, I think as in terms of having special needs, and I think our kids have a difficult time enough making friends and keeping them in this world, and when you add in bullies and all that, it just makes it much more emotionally wrought of a situation. So I think we just have to really put on our seatbelts. I know I always say that, but we have to put on our seatbelts and restrain ourselves as much as possible and let them kind of go through those situations as anyone else would.
Exactly.
Can I chime in here though? Because can I tell you, I am the worst with when something happens. I'm not good with dealing with my emotions about it. So I learned a long time ago that if I took some kind of action, I could deal with my emotions better. So we had like a toolkit for when this would happen, and I would do everything in it. And sometimes one thing would work and sometimes another thing would work. But it would start with wherever it was happening, I would deal not with the kiddo, I would deal with the authorities. So if it was happening at school, I would go to the teacher and the principal and make everybody have a meeting and involve everybody. And if it was happening on the playground, I would go directly to the other parent and say to them, what's happening right now? And is your child aware of the fact that not all children are like them, and not all children, have the ability to speak, and not all children. So I would deal with that. But then as he got older, a mom gave me the best advice in the world. She was like, first of all, find a couple of kids in your kids' classroom, one where it's either they're the middle child of a whole bunch of kids and the mom just doesn't have the bandwidth, or they're the only child and the mom needs a break. Somebody who wants to pawn their kid off for a while, and hopefully also one of the bossy gut girls in the classroom who doesn't get invited for play dates, and befriend that kid, have them to the house and let them do everything that you normally wouldn't like. Let them throw popcorn around the house, be the fun house, so that it gets around to everybody else. If they come to your house, they have
the house,
right? That your house is the house to go. And so we did that different years. And as he got older, whatever it was, graduated. So, and the last thing that's great advice that we had somebody give us, there was a study that showed two things: that there's a specific way to react to a bully. And so we had our therapy team work with our son, because it's not a nothing reaction, it's a whatever reaction, because it takes all the steam out of it. But then the other thing was to make sure, even if you had to create a club that was something your child was specifically good at school or whatever the context was, so that they would have like-minded people, because they're less likely to be bullied when there's more than one of them in a group.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
We found that to be so amazingly helpful, that he had a group of friends that were really into certain video games. And if there were two of them or three of them together, nobody bothered them.
Yeah.
But if it was one of them alone, man, they were fodder for everything. So that was our toolkit, and we just kept throwing it at everything. And something would always work.
Have all of your kids experienced bullying?
Yes. But the hardest part for me was the parent, because there were at least 2 instances where a parent pulled their child away at the park from my daughter when she was only like 5 because she's sick. I think it's more hurtful and astounding when it comes from an adult who's supposed to know better. And then the second time was, when she went, so I had her go to a camp that was a typical Camp Canaret. They were amazing. They were like, we've never had a kid in a wheelchair. I'm like, well, try, see what happens.
Yeah.
And she ended up, they fell in love with her, and she ended up going rock climbing and doing all this stuff. But the first week, there was a parent complaining during lunch hour that her daughter was nauseous watching Sophia eat because of the way. So I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh man, I'm gonna pass out from that one.
Yeah. So I feel like it's more tolerable when it comes from children with the bullying, because at least you feel like there's hope that this person will grow and learn from it. But when it comes from an adult, and especially a parent, I don't know, like that's harder. Because I mean,
it's a good point. It's a good point, because all the work we do now for inclusion is going to help the community out in 10 years, 20 years. All the work that was done 10 and 20 years prior to us.
Yeah.
It's baby steps, but I see so much out of a younger generation that is more aware of our special needs community than we were, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So I see progression in society on that.
Me too.
I think you're right. I think that people are, people are realizing now that there's these people, they're there, and
if you look at how many
reality and
at how many embracing work programs have been developed in just the past 10 years, in the last 5 years. You can't go to a supermarket now without seeing somebody. And in the cerebral palsy world, one of the most aggressive, tenacious attorneys I know is David Lair in Ventura. He used to be a prosecutor. He has cerebral palsy, and he's quite awesome as an attorney. He's got his own private practice now because he does.
Oh, wow.
In the courtroom. So David Lair. He's
how do you spell his last name?
L-E-H-R.
L-E-H-R. Okay.
David Lair in Ventura, and there's so much more available now for our young folks to get out in workforce now, and just so much for them to do in society. There's so much more inclusion now. So that's the positive of it. But
Nava, I think we should start a squad. And it's just moms who, so if something happens to somebody
else, who make kids cry.
Well, no, but the parent, I think the squad should show up and shame that parent.
Yeah.
And just say, what just
the one at the camp. Definitely.
We'll call it the mom squad.
Yeah, I was gonna. Like the special needs mama bears right there is like
the mama bears. Yeah.
Don't get it.
Like Elena said, you can hope that a kid is innocent and he hasn't been taught yet, but a parent who would say that is just cruel.
But I do have to say that I think there's a lot of people out there who still have their blinders on in life, or who have. Who are just
misconception,
who are angry people, who
they
have misplaced anger.
Yeah.
And I think that I always say that I grew up with a friend who had Tourette's syndrome, and he was my best friend when I was a kid. And I saw so many times him go through such horrific things. We'd be in theaters and we'd be chased out of theaters. And I think he always talked to me about, I always wanted to kill everyone. And he would always use it as a teaching moment. And so he taught me an immense, lesson that you take the moment and you say, and it's not always going to work. It's not always going to work. You're going to have people say, I don't care.
Right.
They're still freaks. That's what they're going to say. But taking that moment and speaking to people and saying, this is what's going on. I remember Will was at a pharmacy and he was doing something, acting up and, talking to the person behind the counter, and the woman behind us just was like, "Oh my God, come on. What's going on here?"
Curb that child.
And I looked at her and I said, I just got to tell you, my son has autism, and what you just said was really not appropriate. And she started crying and said, I feel terrible. I'm a teacher, and I just think that what I just did was awful, and I hope you'll forgive me. But I think taking every moment and using it as a teacher moment. Shame is, okay sometimes. Shaming people is okay sometimes, but I think using it as a teaching moment is really important.
Yeah, it's important because we're the only ones that are going to be able to teach them.
Yeah. But sometimes the daggers have to come out.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it is part of that. It is part of the, sometimes I ask, how many folks with special needs do you know? And some of them have no exposure.
Yeah, that's usually the case. You're right.
No exposure.
Yeah.
Well, they need to have more of these, these sensitivity trainings, and having kids in typical schools learn about kids with autism, learn about kids with CP, learn about kids with Down syndrome. I mean, that's the ticket, is saying that these kids are just like everyone else, and all they want to be is friends with your kid.
Well, I also think seeing them in pop culture, seeing them in movies, seeing them in. We were just watching something last night.
Right.
A young woman with Down syndrome. Mayor of
Easttown.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, we're very good.
So good.
Yeah.
So Navi, you want to ask the next question? We didn't go to this one. This one's nice.
What? From our questions, what is the single best thing that you personally have done to support your child, and that you would recommend to other parents? What's the single best thing that you feel you've done to support your child? Shannon, you want to start us off?
Well, of course, I'm going to be controversial and say that, it's hard to just say one thing, but if I had to just say one thing, I would definitely say for us, it was really intensive, good quality ABA for us. I will say that we also, got him healthy at the same time, because I think he had some health issues, and it wouldn't have been as effective if we hadn't dealt with that. But for us, it was totally a game changer. I know that there are people who won't like hearing that, but that was the truth for us.
Like I said, we're all parents. We're all dealing with this our ways, and that worked for you. And I think that's fantastic.
Every one of our kids is an individual and different.
Exactly.
And what works for some people doesn't work for others, but it worked for James.
Yes. And we all have to find what works for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it worked great for us.
Elena.
I think the best thing that for Sophia, but also for our entire family, was really allowing her to experience life as all of her peers were, never really hiding her being outside in the community. I got her a stripper last year for her 21st birthday. She really wanted it.
That's awesome.
I think that the more it was easy at the beginning, I felt it clouding over me where I just wanted to stay home and hide, because there were moments when, the specific moment, I think I did not go to a restaurant for a year because my son was only a year old. My other daughter was 2, and I was getting her tested for autism because she had tons of everything, her tags, everything bothered her. She would have meltdowns all the time. And Sophia would start screaming if they were screaming. So there was one particular incident. We were coming home from Children's Hospital and they were all hungry. And typically, I actually wrote a whole speech about this, the car picnic, because we'd always just eat in the car, because it was just better. You just get food and no one can hear you. And then I'm like, no, we're going to venture out. We're going to go to a restaurant. So we go to a restaurant where they're all starving. Literally within 15 minutes, they were all screaming. The entire restaurant was staring at me. I had a baby in the baby Bjorn, another one screaming, and then the wheelchair. And I'm like, I'm never going out again. So I think that it took me a long time to get over it because it's
Yeah.
scary and you don't know what to do and it's embarrassing. And anyway,
Overwhelming.
the best thing I did was move past that and just keep on going and including all of them and all of our activities, never hiding, never doing the camps together, going to a high school where it had no idea how to handle a kid in a wheelchair, and just focusing on the needs of us as a family versus and giving her the opportunity to shine and be with her family. I'm not saying, and there are some people who it's easier to separate the kids and take them to a different school. I'm not judging that. But for us, it was better to stay together everywhere we went. And that was important and really helped Sophia become happy because there were moments where I felt like she was realizing her disability and getting a little depressed. And this sort of made her feel like it was okay. Like she could still live her life and be in the world and be okay. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Mike, do you want to add?
Yeah, I would say when she was younger, I was a young dad. I was 24 when Cammy was born. So my priorities had to change. And then her mom and I got divorced after only a couple of years. So I was single dad for a lot of that. So making her a priority, literally a priority. The kid has spent more time with me than anybody else in her life on a regular day-to-day basis. When she's with me, she's with me. So I made her a priority, and I let her be a kid. And something I learned from my mom, who was still around when Cameo was young. And my mom was a saint, old school Irish from Boston, who was tough as nails, how she raised all 8 of us kids.
Wow.
Yeah, with a shady Italian. My dad was shady Italian. Talk about parents marrying in 1950s Boston from the Irish neighborhood to the Italian neighborhood. Woo, that's just didn't work. But so I learned a lot from my mom about let kids be kids, let them fall. They're gonna fall. Hold us accountable. But was to just let her be a kid as much as I could and not be the overprotective parent.
Right.
Let her, and I had to pay attention to that. And then as she got older, I think to keep doing what I could that's best for her was to, as she got more independent, was to start doing more in the community, such as volunteering with DSA, LA, and stuff like that, and having her do it with me. So it was let her be a kid, and now I'm letting her be an adult, and I'm having her do more stuff with me, like in our community that is adultish, and I'm letting her do more. She goes to work. I've worked for 2 police departments, and she gets to go to both stations, and she's a total fan there, and everybody loves her, and she can get involved in some stuff. But anytime somebody has a project or something, it's like, let her go do the adult things with us. Let her hang out and talk now that she's grown up. She turned 21. She wanted to know why both her parents like wine. So she did about a 6 month of the alcohol thing. I remember this kid looking at a martini one day at a restaurant going, I want one of those. I said, no, you don't. I'll make you a butterscotch one at home, and you tell me if you want more than 3 sips. So it was let her be an adult. And that kid was over alcohol in like 6 months. Now she's like, my cocktail is a Diet Coke with 3 cherries, please. She's like, it's like, so I'm just letting her be her and not be overprotective, and let her do her stuff, and just stay involved in the community. If she wanted to do dance, she did hip hop dance for 10 years. There's a special needs group out here that's tried basketball and cheerleading and even football and basketball with a whole variety of folks with different special needs. And you just sit on your hands and don't think she's gonna get hurt or she's got let him be a kid. Let her be an adult now. Let her try. She's really good at baseball. She gets that got to be from her mom, but not so much for me. Her mom was a baseball player growing up stuff too, but she that kid can hit and that kid can swim. But there's so much, like, I look back and I'm like, it's because there were times we just did stuff, even though her coordination may have been off or whatever. We just kept doing it, and and let her be a kid. And even though it's she's gonna fall, just let her be a kid. Make her priority. Let her be a kid. And when they get adults, let them be adults. Just be as supportive as you can for it. So,
all right, we're gonna.
Did Shannon did you answer
No, I
that
did.
one?
She
I
did.
did.
Oh, ABA.
Yeah. Well, just on, on top of that, is there anything you guys wish that you did differently?
I know there was one year when I went to the meeting the day before school started, and the teacher was there, and we had the little meeting beforehand, and I could tell that she just thought she was a know-it-all and she knew nothing. I mean, I hope she sees this at some point. I'm going to say sixth grade. And she had two nieces that were on the spectrum that she had met twice in her life. And she said to me, "Don't worry, I'm an expert. I have you." And as I was asking her, I was like, "So how in the lives of these two young women, and who have nothing to do with my son, and do you realize it's not all the same?" And I found out that she'd only met them twice. So I knew I was in trouble, and I came home and I was crying, and I was like, "This woman, she thinks she's an expert. She's not. I don't think she's going to be good at listening." And they said, "You should ask to have the teacher changed right away." Mm-hmm. And I said, "No, that's not how we do things. We work through things, and we educate, and we teach the teachers." And it was all crap. It was and I stayed on her all year long and kept pulling other people in and asking for changes to be made. And it was terrible. And at the end of the year, I just was able to see how much she eroded my son's self-esteem. She was just horrible. And if I could go back and do anything over, I would have yanked him out of that class. Because you're like, "Oh, it's the beginning of the year, give him a chance." Yeah. And it wasn't working. And then suddenly it was January, and I was like, "Well, we're halfway through the year." And then it was April, and I was like, "We're in the home stretch." But on like May 15th, I was like, "I want him out of her classroom yesterday." Mm-hmm. So I would tell people, listen to your gut. Yeah. And don't, if somebody is not getting your kid and they're with your kid for long periods of time, squawk, do whatever you have to do. Don't leave your kid with them. It's a bad, bad recipe.
Agree 100%.
Yeah. That's
well,
good.
I'm just going to say, I think there are going to be curveballs thrown at you. If you're listening to this and you're new to this, there's going to be curveball after curveball thrown at you. Even parents of typical children get curveballs. I mean, it's just how you do with the curveball, how you hit the curveball.
Your kid hits different stages, and it's a whole new curveball. You know.
Yes, it keeps changing.
Yeah, and for girls, it's the hormones. It's like a whole nother.
For girls,
no, I'm
for boys
saying,
too.
I'm saying it's different when you're a girl. It's different. Do I need to explain to you why?
Okay. No, I
say that all the time, Shannon, to Jill. It's like, I'm kind of grateful that I have 8 brothers, and genetically I was going to have 5 boys because, the girl factor, autism and periods, I can't fathom. And it's the same, I'm sure, with Elena and I'm trying not to say
my daughter. Yeah,
I can say it, but no. I mean, it's like every stage too. There's different curveballs. So we kind of went off track of that question.
Well, it's all right. It's all right. Should we?
Yeah, this is a really, I think all of us can relate to this one.
Yeah.
How do you deal with family that aren't supportive?
You mean when they say your daughter's sick?
Yeah. No, I mean, my dad, God rest his soul, was the greatest guy in the world, but he used to say terrible things, and he felt like he'd always say to me, well, your brother's son, he did something wrong, but your children are perfect. And then I had my 2 youngest, and he was like totally thrown. His whole concept of perfect went out the wagon, because to him, I was the only girl and my kids were the perfect ones. And, it's just, it's really the most hurtful thing, I imagine, to my brother who had a nonverbal son who would hear stuff like that. And who wants to take that one? Elena.
Well, I've had some scenarios where the word sick was used, especially from my family's from a different country. And in Greece, a lot of the times, these kids aren't, at least now, they're not really looked at. It's like, oh, they're sick. The first thing a family member said to me was, so when, pretty much the first she was born, so when are you going to institutionalize her?
Yeah.
Because that'll be the best thing for you and your family.
Mm.
And I think at that point, I just cut them off because, I couldn't deal at the moment with explaining and discussing and making them a better person. It wasn't really my place or my job. I think now when I hear, when I've heard it before, I basically say, please don't use that again. My daughter's not sick. She's perfectly healthy.
Yeah.
It's basically education and explaining and this is all repetitive, what's been taught generationally, who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to look like and what you're supposed to say, all those things, which hopefully we're breaking down those walls. So yeah, I basically ignore them, shut it down, and just hopefully they change. And they have.
Well, we all know how families are. Families are, they're dynamic in a family. That's what movies are made of. And I think that there's always someone in the family who's going to piss you off and who's going to do the wrong thing and who's going to treat your kid in a different way. It's always going to happen. And it's, I think, how we deal with that. Like, once again, and you just said it, Elena, it's a teaching moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't want to learn, then you're right, write them off, move on, and avoid, and sit at another table at the family reunion.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I think families, I think it's much harder in a family than in the streets of whatever city you're living in.
Yeah.
Because you can walk away from a stranger and never see them again, and it really doesn't matter to your life. But your family's your family, and so my feeling is having something, having a family meeting if something happens like that, I think is an important thing to do, because you need your family, and I think people who are raising special needs kids, that's a tough job. It's a tougher job than most parents have. And I'll say that I think having a supportive environment is extremely important. And so finding a way to get through that mud and look for clarity in your family and support in your family is one of the most important things you can do.
Yes, agreed.
And write them up if they're not going to.
Yeah, and in our worlds, we build an extended family with our special needs community. And if you have because I have some incredibly difficult family members to get along with, so the extended family we have with people in the special needs community, the ones we're probably going to hang out with more sometimes in your own family. Totally. Those are the ones you lean on. Those are the ones you look for support. So.
Yeah.
And Shelby Landucci just said, friends are also family. And that's exactly what
100% Shelby. Hi, Shelby.
And also that you don't have to walk on eggshells sometimes around your friends. And they sometimes, most of the time, have special needs kids of their own. So you can have, you can be yourself with that type of family.
I just want to say, because it was a big watershed moment for me, my mom, who was always very supportive, at least she thought she was, right? She wasn't doing a good job. My mother knew nothing about autism. So she was giving me all this advice based on not knowing anything. Right. And it wasn't helpful. But I wanted to have her in my life. And eventually what I said to her was, listen, we're trying to do something amazing here, and I don't have the bandwidth to deal with you and your suggestions. So here's what I need from you right now. And I was very clear with her. I said, I need either your support or your silence. You get to pick whichever one you can handle in any given moment, but I don't have room for more. And if you insist on more, I will have to not be around you.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down. I need your or your silence.
S or S.
And it was
that's
hard for her, but she got it eventually and ended up being one of the biggest supports in our life because she understood, which was great. I apologize. I think
Hannah's getting a phone call.
Yes, sorry.
So these are two, we got about 10 minutes left, and these are two really heavy questions.
Yes.
That,
Well, I think that this one is what we all fear the most.
well, they actually both go together, I think. But I think. But,
okay.
So do we go to the first one, this one first, or that one?
Well, let's start with hope, because this is what has been your child's greatest triumph? I know with Eddie, his greatest triumph was when he was really, really little and totally nonverbal and, banging his head against the wall. And I was just in that place. What exactly, Elena, you hit the nail on the head. When I met Matt, I hadn't been to a restaurant in how long? Years. And
3
he
years.
forced me. But for me, water therapy and Elena both, we have that connection together because my friend created one of the greatest, my brother created the greatest, I got to say, first and foremost, surfers healing. But I mean, my background is surfing. And when Eddie was having a tantrum that just would not stop, I went fully clothed with him, just walked into the pool, fully clothed, and he immediately calmed down. It was like I had given him a drug, and the water became Eddie's drug. And for me, finding that tool that wasn't medication, because I'm a naturalist and I always try to go the natural way, that to me was the greatest triumph ever, is finding something that would actually help him kind of calm him down. But also I feel that once he was in the water on a regular basis, it really allowed him to have that spark where he started talking. He was very echolalic, but then he started talking right after that.
Wow.
And it was life-changing for me.
Wow.
I think for me, and this is something that's interesting, because I was driving the other day and I asked Will to read something, and he read
spell.
No, it was spell something.
Yeah.
And he's physical.
No,
he spelled physical.
I said to you, Matt, how do you spell physical? And
right.
Will, and I can't spell
in
it
2
even
seconds.
now.
In 2 seconds.
Like no hesitation.
And I guess for me, I went through the first probably 12 years of his life thinking, oh my God, he's never going to be able to read. And I thought that I couldn't deal with that. That was, I really feel that that's important. And when he changed, he started reading, I'm not kidding. He started reading about 2 years ago, and he's 19, almost 19. And he started reading 2 years ago, and he reads beautifully now. And, I really can't explain what happened. But, the fact that he started reading and that he's allowed himself to kind of learn how to read finally, or to come out with it, I feel that that's his greatest triumph, because I think that's going to suit him well in life. I think, or serve him well in life. I think he's going to be helped immensely by that.
Yeah, I wish Sophia could read. That's like my biggest hope and dream for her.
It was magic when I saw him start to do that.
But because each one of our guys is so unique.
Yeah.
She has her own triumph. So what is Sophia's triumph?
Her triumph or her challenge?
This is what has been her greatest triumph.
Biggest triumph.
Her ability to socially pull people in and engage in a social situation. She can pretty much go anywhere. It is her personality, so maybe it's not really her triumph, but
It is her triumph because
I
she's
guess it
this
is.
she's this social butterfly, and her smile brings people to her. I mean,
Yeah.
she's a magnet for that.
She's very happy when she was allowed to be a cheerleader at her high school. I think when she was, especially at the football games, when she's able to look up at the stage, and then everyone is like, Sophia, Sophia, and treat her like the rest of the team, and know that she is bringing joy to a group of people. And in rooms, I mean, it is a little obnoxious because when she walks into a room, she thinks it's like, if it's a birthday party, she thinks it's for her. But yeah, it's bad.
But, someone I know.
She's very confident. But I think that confidence and all that came through her. I mean, she's really like worked hard at saying hi. That was her first word ever. She says 3 or 4 words. She works hard at it. She works hard at waving. You know, she could have given up, and she knows how much she affects people. And, you know, when we go to old age homes sometimes before COVID and, you know, cheer people up, she knows that this is her power. And I think she works at it very much, very much.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Shannon.
Can I, like, you know, we have an embarrassment of riches. I feel like every day there's a new triumph, and I'm so blessed and have survivor guilt, and, you know, I'm so grateful. But if I had to pick one thing, you guys, I think it would be when he started working at the center. The first week that he came home and he had a paycheck, and he looked at it and he looked at me and he said, I got paid for doing that. I had such a good time, and I feel like I'm good at it, and I feel at home there. And he looked at me and he said, this is a game changer, Mom. You mean I can get paid for doing something that I like and that I'm good at, and it gives me the ability to, you know, do what I want to do? It just, something in his head clicked in that moment, and it has set him up to be excited for work. Yeah. Like, he wants to work all the time. So thank you for giving him that gift, the two of you.
That's wonderful.
He's been one of my best counselors.
Thank you.
That's the way I think of him.
Yeah, thank you to James.
It's just simple. He's just one of my best counselors, period.
But it's that thing that Joanne Lara always used to say, that everyone is entitled to a job, and until you have a job, you don't have a seat at the table. And all of our kids deserve a seat at the table. But you guys did that for him, so I'm forever indebted.
Well,
wonderful.
That's an unexpected treat to hear that today. So, and by the way, we love him, and like Nava said, he's our best. He's our best, one of our best counselors. So,
did Mike answer?
Mike didn't answer yet.
Quite honestly, with Cam, I gotta say, this kid's resiliency. She's grown into such a nice young lady. For, you know, she's had lived in 2 separate homes for the majority of her life. You know, I've had relationships come and go, or mom's been married and divorced several times, and this kid has managed all of this, as well as all the family matters that come with 2 homes and child custody, everything. As a young adult, it's made her. It's kind of the Lou Grant in her, when sometimes you can see I'm being grumpy or something. That kid has no problem. The last couple of years as a young adult, turn to me, Dad, are you frustrated? Or, hey, Dad, you know, I'll be, literally, this kid will go, hey, why don't you take a couple of breaths? And are you breathing? Take a breath. And it's so funny, like if you're upset about something, or she complains, like if she thinks the parents aren't communicating about something, she just like, will you figure that out, or will you talk about that? It's just the resiliency that's come out of that from her late teens now into 22 is pretty funny when you hear the stuff that comes out of her mouth. So I would say resiliency beyond. She's had so many accomplishments in math and reading and development wise, but her resiliency is pretty impressive. That kid can tolerate a lot, and she can digest a lot and regurgitate it. So her resiliency, she's put up with a lot of craziness, and God bless her, she's done very well. She cracks people up when she gets going with her sarcasm. Awesome.
So I want to meet her. I want to meet your kid.
Yeah, she's cracking.
Well,
And she's an incredible singer. She
Oh.
He loves
Yes.
karaoke at the Asner Center. She loves it.
she's like has this voice, this operatic, incredible voice.
well, guys,
I think that's
yeah,
we're wrapping it
that's
up.
it. It's hard to believe it's been an hour, and I think we could go on for like 9 hours.
I agree. This is my favorite.
so
This is
we're gonna
my, I
have to
don't want
do
to be
this again.
biased, but this is my favorite Ed Talk.
So we're gonna have to do a part 2.
Yes, definitely.
But I can't thank you guys enough for joining us today. I hope everyone thought it was informative. I certainly did. I learned stuff, and so did Nava.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I just want to say to everyone out there watching, we do this. This is a free, program of the Ed Asner Family Center. Anything we do online is free. We offer the free from the Ed Asner Family Center, and we rely on your donations to do that. So if you're watching this and you've been inspired in the last hour, please donate and donate often because we need you. And I just want to say before we go, we received some news while the show was going on, and someone very dear to the center and a good friend of my dad's passed away today. Willie Garson passed away, and I just learned about that. And he was a good friend of the center and a tremendous actor. And our thoughts go out to his family and all the friends that are obviously affected by this. Willie was a great guy. He was at many poker tournaments, and he will be missed. So thank you, everyone out there. Until next time, we'll
have to have a Halloween episode.
We will have a Halloween episode.
Yes.
Oh, fun.
You guys.
And until the next Ed Talks, we'll see everyone soon.
Okay. Thank you so
Bye,
much.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.